We expected a human to falter on our training floor. Instead, 6 of our most advanced warriors were defeated by her in under a minute. Look, I've been training fighters for 37 cycles at the Galactic Combat Academy, and I've seen my share of spectacular failures. I've watched Balvian cadets accidentally set themselves on fire. I've seen 3 students get tangled in their own tentacles during basic drills. I once had a Yulvari recruit who managed to shoot himself in 3 of his 5 feet within the first hour of weapons training. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day that human walked into my combat facility. The name is Commander Vec, by the way. 4 arms, 2 legs, a notoriously short temper, and a reputation for producing the finest combat specialists across 7 sectors. My facility on Helix 9 doesn't tolerate mediocrity. We don't coddle weakness, and we certainly don't waste time on species unable to handle real military training. That's exactly what I told Administrator Quilm when she dropped the news on me like a cargo container full of plasma grenades. A human? I asked, spreading all 4 hands in disbelief. You want me to train a human from Earth? Quilm, bless her stone-plated hide, just nodded with that calm, unshakable demeanor of hers. The interspecies exchange program requires it, Commander. Earth has petitioned for inclusion for 3 standard years now. We can't refuse them again without creating a diplomatic incident. Diplomatic incident? I muttered, clicking my mandibles in frustration. You know what will cause a real incident? When this fragile little creature from that backwater gravity well breaks every bone in its body during the first training exercise. Earth is barely past atomic energy, for crying out loud. They still use projectile weapons. Projectile weapons? I asked incredulously. Quell, what are we supposed to do with that? The administrator gave me that look, the one that said, you're going to do this whether you like it or not. And we both knew it. The Galactic Combat Academy on Helix 9 was not just any training facility. We were the best. We produced warriors who went on to serve in the Confederation Defense Fleet, personal guard units for the High Council, and elite combat divisions handling everything from pirate suppression to hostile world reconnaissance. Our students came from the toughest species in known space. Cranes like myself, heavy infantry specialists whose exoskeletons could shrug off small arms fire. Melketh infiltration experts who could shift their molecular density to slip through solid walls. Even Gorvax pilots, lunatics who flew through asteroid fields for fun. And now, we were getting a human from Earth, a planet so unremarkable that most of the Academy staff had to look it up in the database. A Class 4 world, barely worth noting, with a single small moon and 1 star in a forgettable spiral arm of the galaxy. Its inhabitants had only achieved faster-than-light travel 8 years ago, and only because they reverse-engineered crashed Yulvari scout ships. The facility itself sat in the primary dome of Helix 9, a massive rotating station housing not just the Academy, but 3 separate military research divisions, a diplomatic quarter, and enough firepower to glass a small moon if necessary. Our training hall spanned 12 levels, with zero-gravity combat chambers, high-pressure aquatic warfare pools, and holographic battlefields capable of simulating any environment in known space. We had an arsenal that would make most planetary defense forces weep with envy. And apparently, we were about to hand some of that equipment to a species that still considered chemical propulsion an acceptable way to leave their atmosphere. I spent the 3 days before the humans' arrival trying to prepare. I reviewed the species file, such as it was. Bipedal, bilateral symmetry, forward-facing eyes suggesting predator evolution. But honestly, none of that was unusual. Average height around 1.7 meters. Weight between 60 and 70 kilograms. Single heart, already seemed like a flaw. No natural armor, no venom, no enhanced senses, no backup systems. Essentially, they were built like target dummies. The other instructors found it hilarious. Sergeant Kral, who ran the heavy weapons division, bet me 50 credits that the human wouldn't last a full day. Lieutenant Thresa, our hand-to-hand combat specialist, predicted 3 hours before the human would request a transfer. Even Corporal Yinnik, usually the most optimistic being I had ever met, called it a disaster in the making. I didn't take any bets. I already knew I was going to lose. The morning Mira arrived, I was in the main training hall leading my advanced combat class. 12 of the finest warriors in their cohorts moved through live-fire exercises with precision that made me proud. Plasma rounds streaked through the air, hitting targets with exacting accuracy. Energy shields flickered and hummed. The coordination, tactical awareness, raw skill, it was impressive. Then the door chimed. I paused the exercise and turned toward the entrance. The door slid open with a soft hiss. There she stood. Small. That was my first thought. Mira looked even more fragile in person than her file suggested. Dark hair pulled back in a makeshift tail, brown eyes scanning the room in one sweeping glance, and the standard academy jumpsuit hanging loosely on her slight frame. She smiled. Actually smiled, as if she were genuinely happy to be here, in a facility designed to break and rebuild the toughest warriors in the galaxy. Commander VE, she said, her voice carrying that strange melodic quality humans have. Cadet Mira Chen, reporting for combat training. I was told you are the best instructor in the academy. I'm really looking forward to working with you. Behind her, several instructors were gathered in the corridor, barely hiding their amusement. Kroll was already holding up his data pad, probably opening a betting pool on how long this would last. I looked at the small human standing in my training hall, unaware that she was about to become either the Academy's biggest failure or its most unexpected legend. Welcome to Helix 9, Cadet Chen, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I hope you brought medical insurance. She smiled wider. I should have known right then that something was off. The equipment room was where most cadets got their first real taste of academy life. Walls lined with enough weapons to start a small war. Armor systems capable of stopping everything from kinetic rounds to directed energy beams. Training gear designed to push students to their limits without quite killing them. Might file a complaint with the Confederation Council. Then we will be careful. I said, though I shared his concerns. Reduced power settings, basic drills only, constant monitoring. If she shows any signs of distress, we shut it down immediately. Yinnick's translation device chirped as he spoke in his native ultrasonic frequency. Perhaps we should postpone the actual combat trials. Let her observe for a few days first. No, I shook my head firmly. That would be insulting. She came here to train, so we train her. Just everyone, keep your medical insurance updated. When I returned to the equipment room, I found Mira standing in front of the weapons rack, her head tilted to one side, and what I would learn was her thinking pose. She had not touched anything which showed at least some basic discipline. All right, cadet, I said, reaching for the training plasma rifle. This is a Mark 7 plasma carbine training configuration. Reduced yield, but still capable of delivering a solid impact. You will need to. Is that a shock baton? She was pointing at the training weapons section where we kept the melee equipment. I glanced over. Yes, but we are starting you on ranged weapons. The baton is for advanced close combat training, which you are nowhere near ready for. Can I use that instead? She was already moving toward it. Cadet, the training baton is not. Wait, stop. Mira Chen entered behind me, her head turning side to side as if she were visiting an exhibit rather than preparing for what would likely be the most physically demanding day of her short military career. I explained the standard procedure, motioning with two of my arms while the other two brought up the equipment list on my data pad. We begin with training versions of standard Confederation weapons, plasma rifle with reduced output for safety, a personal energy shield generator, light class combat armor. We evaluate your baseline performance and adjust from there. Sounds reasonable, she said, nodding along, as though any of this could truly be considered reasonable for a species that still relied on gunpowder weapons back on its home world. Lieutenant Thessa appeared in the doorway, her silver carapace reflecting the overhead lights. She wore that familiar expression, the one that signaled she was about to say something she knew I would not appreciate. Commander, a word. She inclined her head toward the corridor. I sighed, all four shoulders dropping slightly. Watch the equipment. Cadet, do not touch anything. Yes, sir. Out in the hallway, Thessa folded her primary arms across her chest. Behind her, Sergeant Krall's massive frame occupied most of the corridor, while Corporal Yinnick hovered nearby, his anti-gravity field emitting a low hum. This is a mistake, Vec, Thessa said directly. I have reviewed the human physiological reports. Their bone density is barely sufficient for their own gravity. Reaction speed is average at best. They have no natural defensive traits at all. I am aware, I replied, my mandibles clicking with irritation. I did not authorize this assignment. Take it up with Administrator Quell. Krall let out a low laugh, like stones grinding together. The betting pool is already at 200 credits. I'd say she quits before midday. I am genuinely worried we could injure her, Thessa added. Beck Earth may file a formal complaint with the Confederation Council. Then we proceed carefully, I said, even though I shared the concern. Reduced power levels, basic drills only, continuous monitoring. At the first sign of distress, we stop immediately. Yinnick's translator chirped as he spoke in his high-frequency native language. Perhaps we should delay live combat exercises. Allow her to observe for several days first. No, I said, shaking my head firmly. That would be disrespectful. She came here to train, so that is what we will do. Just make sure everyone's medical coverage is current. When I returned to the equipment room, I found Mira standing in front of the weapons rack, her head tilted slightly to one side, a posture I would later learn indicated she was thinking. She had not touched anything, which demonstrated at least a basic level of discipline. "All right, Cadet," I said, reaching for a training plasma rifle. "This is a Mark 7 plasma carbine in training configuration. Reduced output, but still capable of delivering a meaningful impact. You will need to—" "Is that a shock baton?" She gestured toward the training weapons section where the melee equipment was stored. I glanced in that direction. "Yes, but we are starting with ranged weapons. The baton is used for advanced close-quarters training, which you are not prepared for. Can I use that instead?" She was already stepping toward it. "Cadet, the training baton is not—" "Wait. Stop." She picked it up, reached out with one hand and took hold of the meter-long practice baton as casually as someone choosing produce at a market. She gave it a few test swings, and I swear by my ancestors, she looked dissatisfied. "This is very light," she said, a slight frown crossing her face. "Is there a heavier one available?" The equipment room fell completely silent. The training baton weighed 8 kilograms. I had personally watched 3 cadets struggle to lift it using 3 tentacles. "That," I said slowly, "is not light, Cadet Chen. That is the standard weight for training gear. Please put it down before you injure yourself." She looked at me, then at the baton, then back again, her expression clearly puzzled. "Commander, I'm not trying to be difficult," she replied, "but this really is light. Very light. Do you have something with more weight?" From the doorway, I heard Kral make a sound that could have been laughter, or shock, or possibly both. "Cadet Chen," I said, my patience already thinning before training had even begun, "you are holding 8 kilograms of reinforced durasteel. For most species, that is more than sufficient for a training weapon." "Oh." She glanced down at the baton again. "I guess Earth's gravity is stronger than I realized. This feels like maybe 2 kilograms. 3 at most." She was still holding it, one arm extended straight out from her body. There wasn't even a slight shake. I quickly pulled up Earth specifications on my datapad, something I should have reviewed more carefully earlier. Surface gravity, 1.0 standard. That didn't make sense. I scrolled further, mass, atmospheric pressure, rotation cycle, and then I saw it. Gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. That translated to approximately 1.37 standard Confederation units. The human homeworld had 37% higher gravity than the Confederation norm. I looked up at Mira, who was now casually spinning the 8-kilogram baton in one hand like a writing stylus, entirely unaware that what she was doing should have required significant effort. "You know what," Thessa said from the doorway, her voice noticeably higher than usual, "I'm changing my bet. 3 hours is far too generous." Crow was already opening his datapad. "New wager, anyone? I'm betting she breaks the equipment before it breaks her." Yannick's translator chirped uneasily. "Should we notify medical in advance?" I ignored them, focusing instead on the small human who had just lifted equipment designed to challenge beings twice her size, and complained that it was too light. "Fine," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "Keep the baton, Cadet. Let's move to the training floor and see what you can do with it." "Thank you, Commander." Her face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "I promise I'll work very hard." As she walked past me toward the training floor, casually swinging the 8 kilograms durasteel like it weighed nothing, a sudden, uneasy thought struck me: Administrator Quelling might have deliberately set me up for this. Behind me, Sergeant Kral was updating the betting pool. The odds seemed to be shifting every minute. None of us knew exactly what was about to happen, but we were about to find out. The training floor was a 50-meter square arena, its walls reinforced, boundaries lined with energy-dampening fields, and sensors capable of tracking a fly's wing beat from across the room. My 12 advanced students stood at attention on one side, their combat armor gleaming under the overhead lights. On the opposite side, appearing impossibly small and underprepared, was Mara Chen. She carried only a training baton, no armor, no shield generator, no ranged weapons. Just a human, a stick, and what seemed either supreme confidence or sheer ignorance of the danger she faced. "Standard drill," I announced, my voice echoing across the arena. 3 Krovan cadets will engage with plasma training rounds at 30% yield. Cadet Chen, your objective is simple: avoid being hit for 60 seconds. If you cannot, we stop immediately and reassess your training program. Understood? Understood, Commander, she replied. She rolled her shoulders, stretched her neck side to side, then did a small bounce on her feet, as if preparing for a casual foot race rather than facing combat-trained soldiers armed with energy weapons. Cadets Rovix, then, and Corvus stepped forward. Each Krovan was massive, their thick exoskeletons like natural armor plating, standing a full head taller than the human. They had trained at the academy for 2 full cycles and could hit a moving target at 50 meters without effort. Against an unarmored opponent at close range, this should have ended in seconds. Cadets, take your positions. Remember, 30% yield. We are testing defense, not causing injury. The 3 Krovan spread out, forming a loose triangle around Mara. Their plasma rifles hummed as they powered up, green targeting dots appearing on the floor at her feet. Mara bent slightly at the knees, shifting her weight forward onto the balls of her feet. The training baton came up in a loose grip, held almost casually across her body. And then she smiled, not nervously, not fearfully, but like someone about to enjoy herself. Begin, I called. Rolex fired first. A bright orange plasma bolt should have struck Mara's center mass. Except she was no longer there. She had moved. No, the plasma round hissed through the air where she had been moments before. Adjusted, firing twice in rapid succession. The human twisted, her upper body rotating with impossible fluidity. Both rounds missed by mere centimeters. She did not pause. Watching her move was like seeing water flow around obstacles. Corvus aimed for a leg shot to limit her mobility. The plasma streaked toward her left knee, and somehow, she stepped over it, lifted her leg with casual grace, letting the round pass beneath her and landed back in a fighting stance without breaking rhythm. What in the 7 hells? Kral muttered from the observation platform. All 3 Krovan opened fire simultaneously. A coordinated barrage that should have been impossible to avoid filled the arena. Training rounds streaked in orange, forming a deadly web of light. Standard doctrine dictated either shielding up or taking cover, there was no third option. Mara found a fourth. She moved through the plasma as if it were rain, a slight turn here, a quick duck there, a lazy backward step. Her baton came up once, twice, deflecting plasma rounds with the Dura steel surface in moves that, by all logic, should not have worked. Plasma was not meant to be deflected like solid projectiles. Somehow, she found the perfect angle, and the round glanced off the wall. 15 seconds in, and she hadn't been hit once. Yield increased to 50%, I noted, my mandibles clicking in confusion. The Krovan adjusted their aim. Plasma rounds came faster now, brighter and more powerful. Ralvix tried a faint shot left, then right. I switched to suppression fire, saturating the area with plasma. Corvus attempted a high-low combo that had consistently hit every opponent he faced. Mira ducked under the first shot. The second, she jumped, actually leapt straight up, letting the third pass under her. She landed, pivoted, and moved forward 3 steps, while 4 more rounds missed her by margins too narrow to comprehend. Sensors, I snapped at Corporal Eunuch. Explain what I'm seeing. Yuck's translator beeped frantically as he manipulated the observation console. Commander, the tracking systems indicate this is impossible. Her reaction time reads at 0.15 seconds. That's faster than Krovan combat reflexes, faster than most automated defense systems. Check the sensors, Tessa said, voice tight. They must be malfunctioning. I'm checking, Yickfield replied, pulsing with agitation. They're functioning perfectly. She's not reacting, she's predicting. Look at her eyes. She tracks the barrel, watches their fingers, reads their body language before they fire. 30 seconds had passed. The Krovan cadets were breathing heavily, frustration visible in their movements. They had fired over 60 rounds combined, none hitting their target. Mira appeared only to be warming up. Maximum training yield, I ordered. All 3 of you, continuous fire. Do not stop. The arena erupted with plasma. The Krovan poured everything into the kill zone, weapons screaming as round after round filled the space. Heat shimmered in the air. Energy readings spiked on every monitoring system. Survival without shields should have been impossible. Yet the human moved faster, calm, composed, deliberate. Her feet barely touched the ground. The training baton spun in her hands, deflecting any rounds that came too close, opening paths through the barrage. She flowed through it like liquid, spinning, dropping low, then rising inside Ralvix's line of fire, forcing him to stop or risk hitting Thena behind her. She used their own caution against them, turning crossfire into a liability. Tactical awareness like that should have taken years to develop. Happening in real time in the middle of a firestorm, 45 seconds had passed, and not a single hit had landed. This is impossible, Sergeant Kroll said flatly. Absolutely impossible. Perhaps humans possess some form of precognition, Thessa suggested, some limited ability to anticipate the future, though it's not recorded in their species files. Negative, Yennik reported through his translator, his tone tense. Biological scans show nothing abnormal. No psionic activity, no enhanced neural patterns, nothing that explains this. She's simply reacting. Her visual processing keeps pace with multiple threats at once. Her muscle response is far beyond what her species documentation indicates. And her spatial awareness. Oh no, what? What is oh no? I demanded. Commander, I just cross-referenced her gravitational adaptation data, Yannick said. Humans evolved on a planet with 1.37 standard gravity. Their neural pathways, muscle density, and kinetic system are all optimized for conditions 37% higher than what we have in this facility. Essentially, she's operating in low gravity. That gives her a significant advantage here. 50 seconds. Mira suddenly stopped, planted her feet firmly, and slammed the training baton onto the floor with a sharp crack that echoed across the arena. The Krovan cadet, caught off guard, hesitated for a fraction of a second. Time, I called out. 60 seconds. 0 hits. The human wasn't even breathing hard. Her face was only slightly flushed. Yet she seemed energized, as if she had just finished a light jog rather than avoiding what should have been certain injury. Ralvik slowly lowered his weapons, staring at Mira as if she had sprouted wings. Corvus and another cadet exchanged glances, their mandibles dropping in shock. That was fun, Mira said brightly, rolling her shoulders. Do we go again, or is that it for today's session? The training floor fell completely silent. Every observer, students and instructors alike, stared at the small human who had just performed the impossible. I looked down at my data pad, then at the arena, then back at the pad, hoping the numbers would make sense a second time. They did not. Science Officer Yannick, I said quietly, please tell me there's a rational explanation for what we just witnessed. His translator chirped weakly. Define rational, Commander. That was when I realized we were facing a serious problem. I was not a being who accepted the impossible. 37 cycles of training warriors had taught me that every mystery has an explanation, every anomaly a cause, and every seemingly supernatural performance a basis in physics, biology, or technology. What I had seen demanded answers. Cadet Chen, I said, my voice carrying across the floor with more edge than intended, that was an impressive defensive display. However, defense is only half of combat effectiveness. Let's see how you perform in a real engagement scenario. Mira tilted her head, that curious expression returning. Real engagement, sir? Full combat simulation? I gestured to the rest of my advanced class. 6 opponents, mixed species, full contact sparring with training weapons. Your goal is to remain standing for 2 minutes while they attempt to incapacitate you. Standard Academy combat trial. You may use any techniques you deem appropriate. Thessa stiffened on the observation platform. This was far from standard procedure for a first-year cadet. But I needed to understand what we were dealing with. Understood, Commander. Mira adjusted her grip on the baton, that easy smile never leaving her face. Ready when they are. 6 of my best students stepped onto the floor. 2 Krovan wielding shock staves, a Melkoth with phase blades, 2 Thriel with electro whips, and a Gorvax with powered gauntlets, species bred for combat, trained in advanced warfare techniques, armed with weapons capable of incapacitating most beings within seconds. Against a single human armed with only a stick, the exercise began. The Melkoth moved first, shifting its molecular structure to approach from an unexpected angle. A smart opening. The Threen spread wide, their energy whips crackling menacingly. The Krovan advanced directly, drawing Mira's attention forward, while the Gorvax circled behind. A textbook-coordinated assault. I had designed this exercise myself. Mira moved, but this time it wasn't just about evasion. She closed the distance with the nearest Krovan before he could bring his shock stave into play. The training baton blurred, and I heard the sharp crack of Dursteel striking exoskeleton. The Krovan staggered, his left arm dropping uselessly. She had hit the nerve cluster at his shoulder joint, a precise strike requiring detailed knowledge of Krovan anatomy. The Melpath phase blade materialized from its shifted state and came at her from the side. She dropped low, the blade passing through empty air, and swept the baton across his legs. He hit the ground hard, his density shift disrupted by the impact. Impossible, Tressa whispered. She shouldn't know Melkoth physiology. Mira had joined the academy only 3 cycles ago. A Threen whip snapped toward Mira's head. She raised the baton and, almost impossibly, caught the whip's length against the Durasteel, yanking hard. The Threen, surprised by the counterpull, stumbled forward directly into Mira's rising knee strike. His breathing spiracles closed reflexively from the impact, and he collapsed, gasping. 20 seconds in, 3 opponents were down. The second Krovan and the remaining 3 attempted a pincer movement, attacking her simultaneously from opposite directions. Standard doctrine dictated she had to choose which threat to address first, leaving herself open to the other. Mira jumped straight up, 2 meters, maybe more, in 1.37 standard gravity. In our 1.0 standard gravity facility, that would have been an extraordinary leap. She practically flew. She tucked midair, rotated, and landed behind the Crovan, striking the back of his knee joint with surgical precision. He collapsed, and the last Threne's whip wrapped around her ankle. I saw his muscles tense for the electrical discharge that could end the fight. Mira twisted, using the whip's tension to pull herself toward him instead of away, and her baton struck his chest before he could trigger the shock. He fell, clutching his breathing tubes. The Gorvax, tactically aware, had used the chaos to position himself for a final strike. His powered gauntlets hummed with energy as he swung at Mira's exposed back. Somehow, she sensed it, without visual contact or warning, and ducked, rolling as his massive fist passed through empty air. She moved inside his guard, and the training baton struck once, twice, 3 times at nerve clusters I didn't even know the Gorvax possessed. He whistled in surprise and fell like a felled tree. 45 seconds. 6 opponents. All down. Mira stood in the center of the training floor, surrounded by some of the finest combat students at the Galactic Combat Academy, all groaning or struggling to rise. The training baton rested casually on her shoulder. Her breathing was heavier now, but her eyes were bright, alert, scanning every movement as if ready for round 2. "Stop," I whispered. "Exercise complete." "Recycler." Tessa froze completely, which in her species signaled profound shock. "Cadet Chen," I said, stopping 3 meters away. Instinct warned me not to get closer without permission. "How? How?" she asked. "What, sir?" She lowered the baton, concern crossing her face. "Did I do something wrong? I tried not to hit anyone too hard. Nobody's seriously hurt, right?" "No, they'll be fine," I replied, gesturing toward the scattered students. "But how did you move like that? How did you know where to strike? How did you counter techniques you shouldn't have even seen before?" She looked genuinely puzzled. "I just watched them. Their body language telegraphs their movements. The Crovan lift their shoulders before they strike. Three tentacles tense before the whip snaps. And the Melkith, he shimmers slightly when he phase shifts. Once you know what to look for, it's not hard." The Unix translator chirped continuously, analyzing the combat data. "Commander, I have the physiological breakdown. Earth's gravity is not the only factor. Humans evolved as persistence predators on a planet with mega-predators. Their visual system is optimized for tracking fast-moving threats. Their reaction time isn't just fast, it's tuned for combat. Their muscles are disproportionately composed of fast twitch fibers. In plain terms, they're built for killing things," Kral rumbled. "Humans evolved to chase prey over long distances and fight hand-to-hand when necessary," Yinnik added flatly. "Every part of their physiology is optimized for endurance or explosive combat. They're natural-born warriors without even realizing it." Fessa's voice cracked slightly. "Commander Vec, we need to recategorize Earth immediately. They aren't a Class 4 civilization on a standard world, they're a Death World species." "A Death World?" Mira perked up. "Really? Earth has dangerous spots, sure, but most places are safe if you're careful. Cities are secure. Wildlife is mostly managed." "Cadet Chen," I interrupted, raising all 4 hands in a gesture of surrender I never thought I'd use in my own training facility. "Your planet has carnivorous mega-predators, correct? Large predators?" "Well, yeah. Bears, big cats, crocodiles, sharks. That sort of thing," she replied. "They mostly avoid humans now," Tessa said, her voice hollow. "They recognize threats. On your home world," I continued, keeping my voice steady, "how many species could actually kill an adult human?" Mira paused. "Actually, quite a few, I guess, but most don't bother us unless provoked. We're good at avoiding conflict." "And your reaction time," Yinnik added. "This is normal for humans. Any human could move like that." "Oh no, I'm not that special," she said, laughing. "I trained in martial arts, but there are far better fighters, professional soldiers, special forces, competitive fighters. Some are terrifyingly fast." The training floor was silent. Slowly, I asked, "Cadet Chen, how are you feeling? Exhausted, injured, need medical attention?" She rolled her shoulders and stretched her neck. "Honestly, Commander, I feel great. That was the best workout I've had since leaving Earth. The reduced gravity makes everything light and easy. It's relaxing. Relaxing." She had just defeated 6 advanced combat students in under a minute and described it as relaxing. I sub-vocalized into my comm unit. "Administrator Quell. We need to talk immediately. It's about the human." On the training floor, Mira was already helping the fallen students to their feet, apologizing for hitting them too hard, completely unaware that she had just fundamentally changed every instructor's view of humanity. Saw her casually raise a 50-kilogram equipment case with one hand and shift it aside without effort. Noticed how everyone in the room, without thinking about it, kept a respectful distance from her, even as she remained polite and cooperative. They felt it, that deep, instinctive awareness of a predator nearby. Their senses understood what their thoughts had not yet fully accepted. Do you know what is most concerning? I said that in a few generations, once humans are fully integrated into Confederation space, this will feel ordinary. We will have human soldiers serving in our fleets, human instructors training our armies, and human operatives embedded in our special forces, and we will question how we ever functioned without them. That assumes we survive the adjustment period, Thessa said quietly. We will, I replied. I stepped away from the window because, despite everything, they truly seemed to want friendship. They came here to learn alongside us, to cooperate with us, and to belong to something greater than themselves. That matters. It matters more than anything, Tessa agreed. It is the only reason I am able to rest at night. I went back to my office and opened the revised species profile for humanity. At the top, highlighted in bold red text, was the new designation, Death World Species, Apex Predator Evolution. Below that, in smaller text, someone had added a note, probably unique, based on the style. Despite their physical limitations, humans show strong social bonds, ethical reasoning, and a natural drive to cooperate. Recommend cultural exchange and integration programs. Threat level is high if hostile, negligible if allied. I thought about Mira Chen, smiling as she helped struggling students, completely unaware that she had, on her own, rewritten humanity's role in galactic society. I remembered her describing a Death World combat scenario as relaxing, and apologizing for striking trained warriors too hard. Somewhere on Earth, billions more humans lived ordinary lives, raising families, building civilizations, complaining about traffic and bad weather, the same mundane concerns every sapient species faces. Yet not one of them knew they were the monsters other species whispered about in cautionary tales. I opened the training roster for the next cycle. Mira's name was at the top, flagged for advanced combat instruction. Beneath it, I added a note, recommend assigning to Human Integration Program. She would need guidance to hold back, most species could not survive full-intensity human combat techniques. Leaning back in my chair, I looked out at the training facilities, where the finest warriors from 7 sectors honed their skills, and finally accepted a truth I had avoided since her first impossible demonstration: the Galactic Combat Academy had not gained a student. We had gained a teacher. We just didn't realize it yet. The lesson, whether we wanted it or not, was clear: never underestimate a species simply because it comes from a backwater world with primitive technology. Sometimes, advanced weapons are unnecessary. Sometimes, the species itself is the weapon. Out of morbid curiosity, I checked the betting pool. Kral had won 200 credits by betting Mira would accidentally break the equipment. In a sense, he was right, she had broken every assumption we had about what made a species dangerous. And now, we would all have to live with that knowledge.